As I sat behind the counter of the convenience store, reading some crazy stories on Reddit, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me. It was past midnight, and the only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional rumble of a passing car outside. This late at night, I hardly had any customers. It was creepy, staring out the sliding glass doors into the dark void, so I kept myself occupied. When the phone on the counter suddenly rang, I jumped in my seat, my heart racing. Glancing at the caller ID, I saw that it was my home phone number flashing on the screen. My stomach churned with dread. I lived alone. Were my eyes deceiving me? Reluctantly, I picked up the receiver, my hand trembling slightly. "Hello?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There was no response, only the sound of ragged breathing on the other end of the line. Panic rose in my chest as I repeated my question. "Who is this?" But before I could get an answer, the line went dead. I sat there for a moment, the phone still clutched in my hand, my mind racing with fear and confusion. Should I call the police? But what if it was just a prank call? Maybe it was Drew or Jake. They knew where my spare key was. I didn't want to make a fuss for nothing. Just then, the bell above the door tinkled, and I looked up to see my friend Jake walking in. Relief washed over me at the sight of a familiar face, and I quickly composed myself as he approached the counter. "Hey man," Jake said with a grin. "Working the late shift again?" "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just trying to make ends meet, you know." Jake nodded sympathetically, then glanced around the store. "Mind if I grab a drink? I'm parched." "Go ahead," I said, gesturing towards the cooler. As Jake browsed the drinks, I hesitated before blurting out, "Hey Jake, do you mind driving by my apartment real quick? I have a bad feeling, and I want to make sure everything's okay." Jake furrowed his brow in concern, but nodded. "Sure thing, man. I'll swing by on my way home." Relief flooded through me as Jake paid for his drink and headed out the door. I watched him go, feeling grateful for his friendship and his willingness to help. 20 minutes later, just as I was starting to relax, the phone rang again. My heart sank as I saw my home number flashing on the caller ID once more. With trembling hands, I answered the call, bracing myself for what I might hear. "Hello?" I said. "Hey, it's me." Jake's voice came through the receiver, sounding slightly muffled. "Jake?" I asked, confusion flooding my mind. "What's going on?" "I stopped by your place like you asked," Jake said, his voice tense. "The lights were on, and the door was wide open, so I went in. Did you forget and leave it open?" Dread coiled in the pit of my stomach as I realized the implications of Jake's words. Is there someone there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "No, I didn't see anyone," Jake replied quickly. "But I'm going to lock up for you after I grab a snack from your fridge, okay?" "Okay," I managed to say, my mind reeling with fear. An hour later, my shift finally over, I made my way home, my heart pounding in my chest. As I pulled up to my apartment building, I saw Jake's silhouette behind the curtain, and a wave of relief washed over me. Maybe it was just a false alarm, I thought to myself. But as I opened the door and stepped inside, my phone rang once again. This time, it was Jake's number flashing on the screen. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I answered the call. "Jake?" I asked, as my hands went cold. But all I heard in response was the sound of ragged breathing on the other end. I dropped the phone as my bedroom door cracked open, My heart pounded and my legs froze. Jake, is that you?